I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. I think we're a very interesting presentation from John Revak. Seen some of his other presentations over the years. He does a really good job. And I want to thank you all for coming. And tomorrow, Jude Washleski and the Polka Jets will be here at 3 o'clock for those people that are interested in polka music. There's no admission charge, but donations are always accepted. So I guess that's it. And remember, everybody's going to have their glasses on later for a picture.
Yes.
To me, maybe not anybody else. Okay, John Revak.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Homisak. Okay, so I'm assuming well, I shouldn't assume. When I was a kid, I had a Viewmaster. Most kids did have a Viewmaster, and that was your first exposure to 3D entertainment. And I loved my Viewmaster. And I guess it kind of fueled a passion, because a lot of people don't know what a stereo view is. Because when people see these at first, they say, oh, a photographer took he took the picture and they printed it twice and they put it side by side. That's not the case. They had special cameras made because, well, no, we don't, yeah, I was going to say not yet, but, oh, not yet? Yeah, no, that's what I was going to signal when, yeah. The reason you are able to see that you have depth perception is because your eyes are sending two different pictures to your brain, and your brain's putting it together, and that's creating your depth of field. And that's the theory behind stereo views. They had cameras that had two lenses, two pieces of film, and it took two different pictures at the exact same moment. And you're going to see why that's important later. I'm going to show you a picture. I'll point it out to you why you can't take one picture, move a little bit, and take another picture. It has to be at the exact same moment. And they would mount them on a card, right? So then, back in the 1800s, this was the really popular form of entertainment. So this was, I have a table model, which is a much fancier gutta percha material. It's really, you know, this would be the average person stereo viewer, where you put the stereo view in here and look through, and you can see, you know, it divides with the divider. It's sending two different pictures to your brain. Now, the problem with that is, only one person can look through at a time. And where I was getting frustrated was, you look through a stereo view and you see the picture, and you give it to somebody else, and they said, oh, did you see that? I'm like, okay, give it back to me, let me see, where is it? And it's not a shared experience, because only one person can look at a time. So a friend of mine put me in contact with a South Carolina Civil War museum. And they had developed this software where you scan stereo views and you create what's called, I always get this word wrong, an anelograph. They came up with this, I don't know why they want to just call it something simpler. But what it does is, it takes the stereo view and breaks, you take both sides of the stereo view, scan them, crop them, and the software brings them together and overlays the images. That's why it's necessary for the red and blue glasses, because what you're going to see, and actually I'm going to show you the first, don't put the glasses on yet. I want you to appreciate you've got a red image and a blue image and a black image, 3 images together. And without the glasses, you really wouldn't get the effect. As I was telling Dale, this was not as easy as you think. You know, when you say software, you bring it together and it, you know, automatically does it. No, it was a lot of trial and error. I would do the one image, I'd say, okay, I'm not getting the stereo view effect. Trash it, scan again. Now you can. If you want to hit the lights.
Wait 1 second.
Oh.
Does everyone have their 3D glasses?
I think everybody did.
I think that.
If
Julianne needs another.
Oh, you need one?
I gave mine away.
Okay. If I'm in anybody's way, just yell and I will duck down or move, because it's, you know, I can speak from anywhere, so it doesn't really, you know, I'm not the show here. The show is on the screen. There you go.
Thanks.
And just you know, I mean, this is northeastern Pennsylvania in 3D, but when the other 2 times I did this presentation locally, it was at the Dorflinger Museum in White Mills, and I don't know if you guys realize who the most famous customer of the Dorflinger Glassworks is. was Abraham Lincoln and his wife. So when they had formal dinners at the White House, it was on glassware made by Dorflinger. Okay, now you can hit the lights, hit the glasses, and those of you who could not, attend Lincoln's funeral and couldn't pay your respects at the time, this is Lincoln's funeral going through New York City, the catafalque. And I'm hoping that you're all getting the 3D effect. Now, well, that's why, yeah, I was saying as many people as you can get in the middle, because it would. Okay, can we? Okay, so now let's get. You're not getting it, huh? So. Let's move into northeastern Pennsylvania. This is one of the stereo views in my collection. This is where it all started. This is the Fell House in Wilkes-Barre that burned down in the late 1800s. This is where Judge Jesse Fell originally burned anthracite coal in an open grate that started the whole coal mining industry in northeastern Pennsylvania. Such a simple, just such a simple experiment, and it created a whole industry. And this is the only image that I've ever seen. This is the actual fireplace where Judge Jesse Fell burned the anthracite coal. Now, later on, they rebuilt a hotel on the site where the Fell House was, and they made a new fireplace, a reproduction fireplace, and they actually made a reproduction grate. But this is all the original that was still in the Fell House. And back in the early 1900s, the Keystone View Company came to northeastern Pennsylvania and did took a whole series of pictures that we're going to see a number of them here of coal mining. And hopefully you're getting hopefully you're getting the feel of somebody is, I mean, that you could reach out and actually touch these people. I mean, that's hopefully you're seeing that.
We're going to shut that light off because it's glaring in people's eyes.
Oh, is it?
It's over on the right-hand side. Whoa!
Okay.
Okay, wait. Here, we want to make sure you get down safely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is that okay if I leave that one light on?
No, turn that on.
No, turn
Turn that one too? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Are we good?
Yeah.
That thing's really good.
Okay. Well, yeah, I thought the surrounding light wouldn't make that much of an effect, but
It does.
okay. And here we see the car is preparing to come to the breaker.
Wow. Sounds like you can see.
What? Oh. Now, this is where I was saying to you why it was important to have the photo taken at the exact same time. The original of this, I'm always amazed by the cloud in the lower part of the picture is, it's caught in midair, and it's so, in the original, it's so sharp. And you have to, the only way to do that is to have both photos taken at the exact same moment. But, and I always love coal breakers. No two coal, I don't think in the 1800s, in the 1900s they started standardizing coal breakers like Hudson Coal, any of the new breakers they put up. But in the 1800s, each breaker was quite unique in its construction. And we're going to see a number of the breakers through the presentation. But again, the detail of the cloud always caught my eye, and it's strange. It's such a historic photograph, and I'm worried about the cloud. Now, this is what I call your first propaganda. We're going to have two propaganda photographs. Like I said, the Keystone View Company came to northeastern Pennsylvania, took a whole series of photographs about coal mining in northeastern Pennsylvania. When you hear about breaker boys, what do you always hear? The hard life that the breaker boys had. They didn't get to go to school, they had to raise money for their family, and they had to do this terrible job. This is a smiling breaker boy. why would the breaker boy be smiling? And you know, I didn't catch it at first. Is there anybody who sees why he's smiling?
Yeah, because he's not picking.
He has crutches. He's not working. They dirtied his face for this picture because, you know, the breaker boys would be seated on a board over the chutes of coal and be kicking it down as they were going through the coal. Well, obviously, if he's on crutches, and I didn't notice that the first time I saw this picture, but again, that's why I call it a propaganda photo because, hey, look, breaker boys are really happy when really they're not. They're having a hard life. And this is actually what replaced the breaker boys. Something as simple as a series of slats of wood just dangling from a bar replaced the breaker boys. Are we okay? Am I going too fast? Am you getting to be able to get pictures okay? All right. And this is another picture of the same, a different kind of setup, but you know, as you can see, the different chutes and everything through the breaker. Breakers were, you know, amazing. Again, I happen to love breakers, as you can tell, between the construction of the outside and everything that was going on inside. And again, we have outside of the breaker with the mule and the lifting hoist. Unfortunately, what really bothers me about the Keystone views, they didn't identify where. They just said Scranton, Pennsylvania. Could be anywhere. I mean, when I saw that building in the back, that building in the back reminds me of Colebrook that used to be in Carbondale, the one building. But again, they didn't identify where they took these photos. All they said was they were issued in 1902, so they were probably taken around 1900. And Keystone View Company, to show you how popular stereo views were in the 1800s, they traveled all across the world to take, I mean, there are full sets of stereo views. It's like a view of the world that the Keystone View Company put out because that's how popular this medium was. And again, some stereo views have a better stereo view effect, so you should be feeling like you're standing on top of the coal car. This breaker is actually in Ashley. This is not in the Scranton area, but again, because of how it's taken, and you know, what makes a good stereo view is the number of things that you have at different distances. That's what really makes a good stereo view. Now, this is what I call, again, your second propaganda stereo view. Because nothing says clean play area to put your little kids in their white dresses than go play around the coal works. I mean, I don't know who came up with this idea, but I don't know if you can see there's a couple of little boys sitting on top of the coal car because, again, it's safe to be just sitting on a coal car full of coal, and the girls in the white dresses, and they're, of course, you know, everything is pure white because coal is clean. So that's your second propaganda photo. Now, this is Carbondale, and you have the D&H Canal Company Gravity Railroad. This is plane number 28. You can see up along the right edge, that is the original City Hall before they expanded it. And the high works, as it came through Carbondale, the one thing, and we're going to see more pictures of the gravity, but the gravity, I want you to try to imagine this. I mean, we kind of take a lot of things for granted these days, but in the 1800s, when you had, you know, horse travel, right? The gravity, a lot of it was built on these high trestles. And this had to be an exciting time for these people because this is the closest thing they were ever going to see to air travel. I mean, they're riding above the railroads that ran through Carbondale, between the O&W and the D&H, they all ran on these high trestles through the town. So everybody got an aerial view of Carbondale as they were coming through. And as we continue on, as this is right beyond that point, now again, the big sweeping trestle, and the end point where the trestle comes to an end is behind Nicky's at the Ben Mar. That's where the D&H gravity shops were. So they would build the coal trains there that they would then haul up to Honesdale, up to the canal. And you can see the full coal cars coming down from the valley, Oliphant, Archibald, Blakely, wherever they were loaded. And here we have all the D&H Gravity employees came out to greet us, you know, welcoming us to Carbondale. Actually, this is kind of a sad picture because this is when they were, as you can see, all the wheels on the ground. This is around after 1899 when they were dismantling the Gravity. So you see all the, you know, the cars that have been taken apart. So I guess they had the guys just pose for a picture because there's no other reason for them to be all lined up on the cars like that. So again, this whole area, all these buildings were behind the Ben Mar at one time, and that was the headquarters of the D&H Canal Company Gravity. Now, let's take, while we're in Carbondale, we're going to take a little break. This is Simpson's Hotel up at Crystal Lake, the original Crystal Lake Hotel. And as you can see, the boaters dressed in their typical boating gear. You have the bowler hats and the straw hats and the big frilly dresses and everything. Typically what you would see somebody out in a boat in these days. But again, the original Simpson's Hotel, I don't know if that's on the site of where Crystal Lake Hotel is. I'm not sure. I have not been able to verify that. But
I bet it wasn't because I know that my dad had to blast a lot of rocks so that they could put in the Crystal Lake Hotel.
Okay.
The old owner had told us that so many times.
Okay.
So my guess is that that's in a different location.
Okay. Yeah, I've never been able to find out exactly where. I mean, I've seen pictures. There was a lithograph with the Crystal Lake Hotel and all the other surrounding buildings in the lake, but it didn't, you know, it would have been nice to have a map to say, you know, here's where it was on the lake. But again, you know, I've had to row at times, and I don't know how you would row in a full suit and not pass out. You know, it's just. It's just,
wore them back then.
yeah, well again, that was the norm.
Yeah.
And
Life jackets.
no life jackets. And here was the steamer that ran on Crystal Lake. I'm thinking it was called Lady of the Lake, but I'm not sure. I remember hearing Lady of the Lake, but I don't know. Does anybody know for sure? But you know, back then it was just a thrill. And most lakes around here, you know, Lake Lodore had a steamer. Crystal Lake had a steamer. I don't know how many other lakes had steamers, but it was your typical entertainment in the 1800s. You go up for a boat ride around the lake. Now we're back into Carbondale because we want to head out. This is behind the Ben Mar. You have the D&H Canal Company Gravity passenger cars. Now, the car in the center, there's a medallion on the side of the car. Now, being the Gravity Railroad geek that I am, if you go up to the, and I don't know if they still allow this, but in the Wayne County Historical Society on Main Street in Honesdale, they have that car. And it used to be that you could go in the car, sit in it, and they would have a video. And they still do? Yeah, I'm such a geek. You know, the lady says, well, let me put the video. I said, no need to put the video. I'm here just to sit in the car because I loved it so much. I mean, you just sit there and imagine, because there wasn't anything I was going to see on the video that I didn't know about the Gravity already. But here we are leaving behind the Ben Mar. Now here we have, if you're familiar with the area around, okay, in Simpson, above Simpson, when you come to the White's Crossing Sports Shop and you head out, the road where Canaan Street meets the road going into White's Crossing. That is where that's the area where the Racket Brook Coal Breaker was. And what you're looking at is the Racket Brook Coal Breaker on the upper part of the picture, and the Gravity plane as you're, I have to apologize. I forgot my laser pointer at home. I thought I had everything and I forgot my laser pointer. So you have the Gravity, this is plane number 4 on the Gravity Railroad, and the Racket Brook Coal Company breaker in the background. Again, right when, next time you go into that, every time I go by that intersection, I think about the breaker. So we're heading up the Gravity toward Honesdale. The most famous point on the D&H Canal Company gravity is actually in Fell Township. The only part of the, and again, I'm a Fell Township historian, the only part of the gravity that was there, because the railroad was run completely by gravity, you had to allow for the contour of the land. Now, they could have built these lifting planes to, to lower the cars by cables, but it was a lot cheaper to have this long sweeping curve in the railroad. Like you see, you're starting the curve on this side, you go through this big sweeping rock cut, which we're going to see the rock cut in a minute, and then you see the cars. When people first rode this railroad and they were on this track and they saw the front of the train on the other, they thought it was another train coming from another direction until they swung around and they realized, nope, that's the same train that we're on. Here's the rock cut, and again, you come through there, and it had to feel like air travel. When you're coming from a rock cut, and then you come to this open area, and the whole Lackawanna Valley is in front of you. It must have been an incredible sight for these people. Again, the feeling of flight. Now, this is one of again, another favorite picture of mine. I love to show this to kids when I'm presenting to high school students or little kids. This is an open air passenger car on the D&H Gravity. And I say to them, you think it's exciting to ride a roller coaster nowadays? I said, I want you to think about this. You're riding down the side of a mountain. You see any seat belts on the side? You see a front on that car? There is a brake wheel, but again, if you have to come to a sudden stop, there was the one presentation I do about a ride on the D&H Gravity, there was an oxen on the track that the train just knocked the oxen off the track. But again, if you hit something and you come to a sudden stop, you could get thrown off the car. But again, now when I show people this, and again, well, the kids don't really understand it, but when I tell people that this is an open-air passenger car, they say, no, that had to be a work car. They would never put passengers on a car like that. It's just not safe. Aha. But, church outing. Waymart Station, leaving the Waymart Station to go up to the park at Farview, and what do you see? Open-air cars with people piled every open spot. And I don't know if you guys are aware, up at the area of Gibney's, at the Farview Station, there was the Farview Park. They had a running racetrack, they had a baseball field, they had towers that you could climb up and look out. If Dave ever has me come back to do the ride on the D&H Gravity, we can see those. We can see those pictures. But this confirms that yes, those are open-air passenger cars, because when they wanted to make money, you get as many people on those cars as you possibly can. And again, you see on the one side, the loaded coal cars, those are the cars on their way to Honesdale. And the one thing I want you to remember, if you're ever at the light in Waymart, and again, being the geek I am, the gravity, when you ride on Route 6 from Waymart to Honesdale, you're going up and down hills many times, right? The gravity, which ran by gravity, there was no locomotives. It just ran by, the gravity hauling the cars. So when they left Waymart, they went all the way to Honesdale non-stop. So they had to they had to change the contour of the land all the way from Waymart to Honesdale so that the cars would just freely run all the way until they got to Honesdale where they stopped. So anytime you're at the light in Waymart, remember, people used to get on cars right there and coast all the way to Honesdale. This is coming into Shepherd's Crook. These were the high-end passenger cars. As you can see, they have an indoor component and an outdoor component. A woman very well dressed with a big frilly hat and everything. I don't know if they charge, how much they charge to ride in the, this was the Passaic. The Passaic is the front car. I don't know the name of the second car, but again, combination cars. They did, the gravity, it's funny, because the gravity was meant to be a coal rail. Actually, the gravity early on carried more lumber than it did coal. And it was meant to be a coal railroad. And they actually put put off. I mean, the gravity opened up in 1829, and they didn't start hauling passengers. Well, they hauled passengers between Carbondale and Oliphant as early as 1860. To Honesdale, it wasn't until 1877, and they didn't want to do it because they said, we're a coal railroad. It got to be so popular that they had to turn out cars left and right to haul all the passengers that wanted to make this trip. Here we are back, different view. Again, the cars, the elevated area you see to the left is coming back from Honesdale to the Waymart station, and the loaded cars are going from Waymart to Honesdale. And he's somebody's buddy, the little guy sitting on the raised area there. Sealyville, as you're passing through Sealyville, again, the gravity, Birdsall, that's it, I couldn't think of it. The Birdsall Mills in Sealyville. This is, again, one of my favorites, and it really is good for a 3D view. You have, at different points, the gravity railroad, the light, now, see, I don't know how much you guys know about the gravity railroad, but you had what was called the light track and the heavy track. When the coal was going from Carbondale to Honesdale, that was considered the heavy track because the cars were all loaded with coal. Coming from Honesdale back, it was called the light track. So there were different places where the heavy track crossed the light track. And again, this photo has it all. You've got passenger cars coming on the heavy track from Carbondale to Honesdale. You have the empty cars leaving Honesdale on their way back to, well, they don't go directly to Carbondale. They would go to Archibald, Oliphant. Well, actually, there was a switchback outside of Carbondale where they could have gone directly back to Carbondale. But again, that's another presentation, so you don't get to hear about that today. No, just kidding. But again, you have everything in this photo to create a good 3D image. The coal shovel in Honesdale, I like this one because actually I like the story behind the coal shovel, because the story is there were 6 levers in the coal shovel, and the guy operating the coal shovel, for every bucket of coal, he had a maneuver. See, now you remember, you got 2 hands and 2 feet. So he's moving from one lever to another to try to load this coal into these cars. But this is what happened in Honesdale. You know, it's funny. It was really an inefficient operation because you would think you could bring the cars from Carbondale to Honesdale, dump them right into the canal boats. Didn't work that way. They actually dumped them into a big pile. Then they reloaded them, put them back in cars. Those cars then loaded them into the canal boats. It was not one of your more efficient operations. Here's a good, nice view of the canal boats waiting. Usually you don't see that many boats in the canal. It might be toward the end of the season or after winter, you know, the start of the season. Because again, you don't make any money by boat sitting. You make your money by getting the boats in the canal and you know, getting out to Rondout, New York. Again, different view. This is not so much, the 3D is not so good on this one. It did not come out as good. I apologize for that one. In Honesdale, again, what makes a good 3D image is having things at different levels. You see the 2 children in front of Dyeberry Creek. What I want you to notice is on the top of the hill where the star is in Honesdale, there was this massive hotel, the Irving Cliff Hotel. And I know the star is nice. Personally, when you got a view from up there, I really think they should have rebuilt, after that burned, somebody should have rebuilt a hotel up there. Because can you imagine waking up in your room every morning and looking out and just seeing all of Honesdale from your open window? Here is from the cliff looking down on Honesdale. What I'd like to point out here is you see on the right side toward the center, a lot of times you see covered bridges and you think about the country. You know, covered bridges are out in the woods and you come to this narrow road and there's a covered bridge. But there were covered bridges downtown back in the 1800s. So you have a covered bridge I think this is the bridge at the end of Honesdale when you cross over, as if you're going to where they have a wall of artwork there. I can't think of the name. Yeah. I think that I think that's where it is, but I'm not absolutely sure. I haven't been able to identify where this is in Honesdale. It could be farther up where the old armory is.
No, I don't see the courthouse.
But again, you know, covered bridges in Honesdale, and you still, because you have the canal and all the works visible, that's why I'm thinking it's more lower Honesdale than upper Honesdale. This is entering Honesdale. If you were entering the bridge, you have the Hotel Wayne. Again, 1800s, much different, but you know, Honesdale was a growing town with all the coal activity. Now, this is something a lot of people don't realize. You see the bridge in the lower right? They think that's the bridge coming into Honesdale. Not the case. In the 1800s, when you had the canal, you had the canal, on the one side of Honesdale was most of the canal, but they built another canal basin that was on the other side of Main Street. So, you know, Main Street didn't always have buildings on both sides. You had this area where you see the canal boat in the lower part of the picture. The canal boat is going under the bridge to the canal basin that is in central Honesdale. So you had the canal basin much larger than people realize it was. And again, that all got filled in. When they filled in the canal, that all got filled in, and you know, there was buildings put up on that side of Main Street. Again, I love my pictures so much, I'm sorry, but this is the Honesdale Glass Works. And again, normally when you see people or companies pose for a company photo or employee photo, you line everybody up nice and you have this. I don't know who said, hey guys, get up on the roof. I mean, awesome. I mean, it's just, yeah, it is. That's why I love these pictures so much, because it's like this is the most random employee picture I've ever seen in my life. Right. You know? But there they are, the Honesdale Glass Works, where they see, they made a lot of bottles that went as far as, I've seen bottles, companies out of Philadelphia, where it's, you know, Philadelphia beer bottles, where on the back side it says Honesdale Glass Works. So Honesdale Glass made its way all through the East. Yeah.
John, do you know where that was in Honesdale?
I think it was on the courthouse. I'm trying to remember. I used because there was a couple of glass companies. You had the T.B. Clark company. Maybe I'm thinking the T.B. Clark company was up near where the armory is. I'm not exactly sure where this one was. I should have had my buddy Kurt Reed, who's the glass expert up in Honesdale. I should ask him. But no, I'm not sure exactly where this was. Sorry. Lower Honesdale, in the right side of the picture in the center, there's a canal boat being built. And you can see there's a little basin where the canal boat eventually, once constructed, they will let it slide down into the basin and it can join the other boats in the canal. This is the bottom of Plane 13. This is the first of the light track heading back toward Carbondale. You have the canal. Well, we're going to see another picture that's facing the other direction, so you'll see the plane going up the hill as you're leaving the town. But this was, if you know where the Wayne County Historical Society was the D&H office, so this was behind where that area is now, and you'd have all the switching of between the passenger cars, the coal cars, and there is a sign on the one picture where you'll see locomotive. There's a sign for locomotives, and you say, well, wait, it's the gravity. But when you had the flat area in Honesdale, they actually had locomotives to move cars back and forth when you were in Honesdale. So once the gravity delivered the coal cars, there was locomotives that would move the cars around. This is the picture, this is the opposite side. So the bridge you're seeing here was the one at the bottom of the previous picture. You have the passenger cars leaving Honesdale on their way up Plain 13, on their way back to, well, Archibald, Oliphant, Carbondale, and the canal. Hopefully you're getting a good 3D view of that, because that's one of the better 3D. Now we're in the Lackawanna Valley, and we're at one of the tops of the plains of the D&H gravity, where they lifted the cars, you know, throughout the gravity. The gentleman you see on your right, it is widely accepted that that is, a lot of photographs were taken by a photographer by the name of Louis Hensel. He is a very prolific photographer, and I love the work this guy did. He is holding a pocket watch, and most likely he is timing the exposure for the photograph to be taken. But you see the cables that come up, and farther out of the picture you would see the cables go underground, where they would go onto a very large drum that actually haul the cable up the hill. And we have another next view. Yeah, here is looking down the hill, so you can see the cables going down into the Lackawanna Valley. I think this is Plain 24 in Peckville, I think. No, it's Peckville. And again, Louis Hensel, probably timing the exposure. But you saw, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know that much about the photography, but he was active in the 1870s. So I don't know how long. I'm not an expert on cameras, unfortunately. Any camera buffs out there? Dale, do you know anything about camera exposure in the 1870s?
It was long, I know that.
I mean, some of them used to talk about 30 seconds. And that's why people didn't smile on pictures, because you couldn't hold smile that long.
Right.
So that's why everybody doesn't have a smile on it.
Yeah. Now, I have another presentation about photographers in the northeastern Pennsylvania, and we talk about how they hold a smile. I'm sorry, you're kidding. Sorry, I've got like 8 presentations I do. They're all over the place.
John, what's the grade on that?
The grade?
The grade on the rail, like what's the pitch, whatever you want to call it.
Well, they vary depending on, see the planes, because you're controlling, see railroads, when running a railroad with a locomotive, you cannot have more than a 2% grade. Because if you go more than 2%, because you remember, you have the steel wheels on the locomotive are flat. There's no tread on them. And the track is flat. So if you go more than 2%, now you've got wheels spinning in friction. You know, you're not going to get the traction. Where in this case, you had planes. I'm sorry I keep going to my other presentations, but you're asking questions, and if I had my other... like when you're leaving Carbondale and you're going up to Waymart, right? Because it's such a steep climb, they had, there were 8 planes going up from Carbondale to Waymart. And the reason and the planes were short and steep, because they would only bring 1 or 2 cars up at a time. When you got down in the valley, when you were like leaving Oliphant, you would see more gradual planes. You know, in other words, they would be longer, much longer, and a less grade to them. But when you had the steeper mountain, they would make them shorter, steeper grade. So there's no standard grade that it's, you know, it depends on the contour of the land. Oh, I'm sorry, Grassy Island Breaker in Archibald. Again, my love for breakers, I often wondered if when guys are there could have been women, you know, designing breakers, I don't know. That when the people were designing breakers, you'd think they said, how many roof lines can we have? It's like, with breakers, it's kind of like they built the interior mechanism, and then they built around it, and they only built as much as they needed around it. I mean, you see the windows are not lined up. The windows go and you know, and you've got, I don't even know what is going on in here. I mean, you know, it's like you're raising things to the top of the breaker, and then you've got all these other structures, and I don't know again, you don't see two breakers alike. And I often wonder what they're thinking when they're building a breaker, because in the 1800s they were such unique structure. I mean, it's so easy to identify a breaker because you don't see a second one like it. And I remember I was saying the gravity crossed, the light track and the heavy track crossed many times. This is down in Peckville. You've got the light track and the heavy track crossing the Lackawanna River, and the gravity crossed the Lackawanna River, I think 3 times between Carbondale and Oliphant. And again, just riding the gravity had to be an experience for these people. I mean, this had to be something, because, I mean, consider they're used to horse travel. And why he's riding that center car, unless he's just posing for the picture. That's not Louis Hensel up there. He's too far away from his equipment. And again, now you're in Archibald. Again, crossing the Lackawanna River. This is the bottom, I think this is the foot of plane number 26. So you'd be heading up the hill from here on the track that you see in the lower part of the picture. And the other track is coming back down to that, so it would be the light track in the background, heavy track in front. We're going to run up, I mean, this is the Belmont Silk Mill up in Holly. If you've seen the castle building up in Holly, it's been around a long time, obviously. But it was the Belmont Silk Mill. I don't know if they had a water wheel at one time. I haven't seen a picture with a water wheel to run the equipment, but it was built right next to the falls there. But a rare thing that you hardly see. I mean, I showed you the fell interior picture. You rarely see interior pictures, but this is the Belmont Silk Mill interior when it was first operating, which amazed me because it's like a lot of empty space for, if you're going to build a building. It seemed like this was overkill when you're building a building. But that's the inside of the castle when it was operating, and I haven't been up there lately, so I don't know exactly what the interior looks like. Dave, if I go over time, just yell me, say, stop, John. Where are you? Okay.
You're doing all right.
This is, again, this is now Holly. This is we had 2 different gravity railroads in northeastern Pennsylvania. You had the D&H that ran from Oliphant to Honesdale, and you had the Pennsylvania Coal Company, which ran from Pittston to Holly, and they both emptied into the D&H Canal. This one picked up the D&H Canal in Holly. But again, I always love these high works photos, because again, you realize the experience these people had riding this railroad. And you usually don't think of Holly as a coal center, but because there was no coal mining in Wayne County. Here we have passenger cars, and if you go down to Nyack Park, you see, I think it's the car up front, the passenger car, the Pioneer that's down, or no, there's the Pioneers in Holly. There's 2 passenger cars, one in Nyack Park and one in Holly. But these are people leaving, and again, look at the height of the high works that people come into Holly on in the background. This is Wagum Falls outside of Holly. Again, with the passenger cars. Now, the next couple are the Pennsylvania Coal Company on its way to Pittston came around the Nyack Gorge. Now, this doesn't really give you the best thrill. Let's say thrill. Let me go one. And this, well, that's the Nyack Lumber Company down in the gorge. But again, you see the track from the gravity. But the next one is the best one. I wouldn't get on that train. I'm afraid of heights. I would not get on. Look, I mean, the ties are sticking out in the air. And you're riding a passenger car, and it's like,
They're hanging on the side of the car.
Yeah, it's like, but hopefully you're getting a good stereo view effect to get the feeling of, that's quite a drop, And again, the Pennsylvania Coal, what I love about railroads is they only clear enough space that they need. You know, when you look at a highway and you've got the shoulders, the median, the two, you know, how much space you have to clear out and maintain for, but railroads, you know, God forbid a deer is walking in there, because where's he going to go? I don't think they can jump that high. John, you're a hunter. Deer can't jump that high, right? No. And this is Dunmore. The head office of the Pennsylvania Coal Company was in Dunmore. There used to be a nursing home, Laurel Hill Nursing Home. They've since torn it down, but the headquarters of the Pennsylvania Coal Company Gravity was in Dunmore. And we're going to end up in Susquehanna. The only one I have is Susquehanna County, because we're ending up in Susquehanna County. The Erie Station up there, unfortunately, I never owned this one. I copied this off the internet because I've been trying to buy one for years, and every time I'd bid on one, I couldn't get it. But the train coming into the Erie Station up in Susquehanna.
John, have you been up there lately? Someone has actually refigured that they're remodeling the whole place on their own, very slowly.
Well, when I was up there years ago, I took a ride up there when my mom was still alive. We took a ride because I love, you know, train stations and stuff like that. And it was still all, there was nothing there. I mean, the building outside looked beautiful, but there was nothing inside. I was hoping they were going to do something with it.
They have the ballroom almost finished.
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
There's pictures on Facebook. They have them on Facebook. When they work on it, they put them on Facebook.
And we have to, there you go, Forest City Historical Society programs. Are we good?
Well, John, thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation.
Well, I hope people enjoy it, and that's why you do it, right?
Did we like this or what? Was this the best? No.
I want everybody to put their glasses on.
Oh, yeah, we got it, yeah.
Okay, two things. It's done. Nobody get up until we get our picture and then ask the questions. John mentioned before, and numerous times, he has done many different presentations. I saw the Gravity Railroad presentation.
Well, no, you saw I thought you saw the Fell Township one. See, you were at the township building, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that was about the history of Fell Township and well, Panthers Bluff, and the Morrison. Yeah, that's the one you saw. Okay. No, I have ones that I take people on a photographic ride, getting on the train. Well, the first time I did it, it was over the entire D&H Gravity. And because people kept stopping and ask questions and different things like that, I did it in Lackawanna Historical Society. 3.5 hours. I can't talk for 3.5 hours. So we broke it up into a 50-50. So I do Carbondale to Honesdale on the Gravity, and then Honesdale back to Carbondale, taking a ride through photos and maps and different things like that. But I mean, I have tailored presentations. Like they asked me at Fell Charter, well, can you do a history presentation and tie it to Earth Day? Well, again, I try to tie the presentation to what they want to see. I mean, there's, you know, I feel like a Marvel movie, but I mean, there were pictures of Scranton that were in here that I took out. I moved them because I didn't want to, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but you know, it's a courthouse and there's different pictures, but when I did the full presentation, I had some more pictures that I moved to the end and I put in the slide and said thank you, you know, because I didn't know if we wanted to go down to Scranton and just look at buildings. But, you know, that's what Marvel does. They give you the little after credits thing. But, so again, I try to tailor what people want to see, and, because I don't know who, I think when Peggy was alive, she wanted me to do one that was strictly on coal mining. I said, well, I don't have one strictly on coal mining. I mean, coal mining is coal mining. It's, you know, I try to pick interesting pictures like the propaganda ones, you know, the kids and the smiling breaker boy. So you got to make it interesting. If you're just going to sit up here and just click and click and click and click, you know.
Yeah, no, I like that concept.
You got to have.
The question is,
yes,
that if we were to have John back to give another presentation, is there enough interest that we would do this? And I think, having seen other presentations that he's done, personally, I think that we should think about having John back.
Well, you've got the list. Do you still have the list?
I have the list.
Because I gave it out to German Historical, and I don't know if...
I think I might.
Do we have a garbage?
I don't know, I might.
Oh, well, we'll have to print one out. Do it. Right there.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you for supporting this historical society. Very important.
Thank you, guys.
You're not going to see this.
Yes.
Need to take a picture.